my top tips for getting involved with the Race Equality Charter. The first one is crucially have senior level buy-in, have the Vice-Chancellor or the senior team bought into this and committed, and for them to be selling it from the top of the institution. That way you're going to get more engagement across the whole institution. I think also making sure that you're involved with your students' union, trade union and staff network groups and getting them bought into the process will also help with this. I think the second thing for me is also making sure data is really important with the Race Equality Charter. So I think having someone who maybe been involved with the Athena Swan process, who understands how to gather some of that information to get involved. But I think getting a good data person on board early on will be really important to engage with that. And my third and final tip is really don't rush things. The process is just as valuable as gaining the charter mark at the end. Taking that time to really talk to your staff, have a look at the data, engage with people and find out what the real issues are, and then taking that time to then develop some really strong, realistic actions will be really important. So don't just rush in and aim for that charter mark straight away. I think take your time, go through, and that process you'll find really beneficial and valuable as well.
My top tips for anyone who was getting involved with the Race Equality Charter, well, firstly I would say get involved. It's certainly an area that I think, or a project that I think would enhance the understanding of issues across the institution for colleagues from all backgrounds. I would say work, certainly in terms of the data that was provided by myself and my team, I would say work with that data, look to understand the questions that it's answering and addressing, and get involved because it enables you to interact with colleagues from a wide range of areas that you may not necessarily otherwise have necessarily worked with on a day-to-day basis, which can only be a good thing.
I think my first top tip about the Race Equality Charter would be make sure you're a part of it. It's really important. It can only benefit BME staff. It can only help, it can only make things more equal for everybody. It's a really important piece of work, and without a commitment to change, nothing will ever happen. The Race Equality Charter is a great way to formally acknowledge the issues that go on for members of staff who aren't of a white background, and to then commit to that change. So that's the first thing, get involved. I think it's really important for BME staff network groups to be on the self-assessment teams. It's only black members who know that direct experience, and they need to voice that. They need to really contribute to the work of the Race Equality Charters to make sure that they are looking at all areas and that they do so in a way that is realistic, but also that provides a true picture of what's going on. You know, sometimes you have an overview of an issue, but you don't know the intricacies, and only black staff network groups will be able to feed into that. So that's very important. I also think it's important to make sure that the work of the Race Equality Charter, once you are involved, is monitored. It takes a long time for change to take place, to be implemented, and that needs chasing. You know, nothing happens straight away. I think it's very important to know that the Race Equality Charter, while it's important work, it'll be something that's part of a larger piece of work. You know, at any institution that will take the Race Equality Charter on, it's an institution that will commit to equality and diversity as a whole, and that isn't only one piece of work, it's a large area. It means a lot of people involved, and so I think it's important to not be discouraged, not lose hope, and know that it takes time, but also that sometimes you need to prod people to make sure that change actually happens. So I think everybody should be involved in it. I think the Race Equality Charter is a very positive thing. It can only help, not hinder. and I would encourage all Black staff network groups, anybody from a minority ethnic background to be involved in it wherever they can.
Three top tips are: one, have the conversation at the beginning of the race charter mark with the self-assessment team and ask about race, what race means to them, why they're taking part in the process, and also what they hope to get out of the whole thing. That's so important, and what it does is it creates a shared vision for the self-assessment team, which I think is so fundamental to keeping the energy levels going beyond the first few meetings, right through to when the submission has to take place. The second top tip is communications. Keep the communications going to the wider university so that they know the race charter mark is going on, and that it's not just something that is happening at the beginning of when it's announced that we're going forward, and at the end when the award is hopefully given to your institution. The Race Charter Mark self-assessment team are key to delivering those communication methods, so they must be the ones who are at the front of those, whether it's by email, on platforms such as StaffSpace or your intranet, and also externally as well. Featuring in learning work weeks or events, all those things should be done by the Race Charter Mark self-assessment team rather than just one or two people. The third top tip is really understand what the burning issues are. There is so much data and there is so much information. It is absolutely worth time. It's worth spending the time on finding out what are the most critical issues and then just lifting them up from the pile of data that you've got before you and focusing on them. If you can say that these are priority issues because they are so important to the student or staff well-being and student and staff progression, that is a legitimate way forward. Otherwise you'll get lost in producing so much analysis which is meaningless in the long run.
So 3 top tips: ensure you get senior buy-in and ensure you have senior champions right from the onset. Additionally, talk to all faculties, all directorates, talk to as many students as you can before, so get them involved right at the start. It's really key that they're involved right at the start so that you get that buy-in. And the third top tip would probably be to ensure that your data sets are accessible, to have Tableau at people's fingertips, to have the ability to look at and scrutinise the data there and then. It's very, very helpful. So yeah, they're my 3 top tips.
First top tip is to keep focused on the task at hand and realising what you can and can't achieve. The task at hand is something as simple as submitting your application for a race equality charter mark, and therefore you're not necessarily going to solve all the world's problems. You have a task at hand, so saying focused on the task at hand is my first tip. The second, however, is perhaps a contradictory tip, and that's realising that getting the piece of paper of the Race Equality Charter Mark isn't the be-all and end-all. What is the be-all and end-all for you as an institution is to improve the experience of BME staff and students and to ensure that race is dealt with fairly and equitably in your institution. So that means that, yes, focus, but also allow the space of your self-assessment team. Give it breathing space and don't make it too rushed, because sometimes people will be bringing things forward that they've never had the opportunity to speak about before. My third top tip is probably make sure that there's a sort of sense of camaraderie, and fun isn't the right word, but there's a sort of sense of mission behind getting an application like this in, and that's about saying that you want to achieve something positive for the institution. So it was a sense of trying to keep an energy and keep going to say light-heartedness with the process, so that you know that this is something that you all can achieve together.
first one is definitely commitment from the top. So I knew really clearly that one, I wanted DMU to participate in the Race Equality Charter, Mark, but two, I wanted the backing of the institution before I agreed to take it forward. So I knew they would say yes, I knew it was that easy, but pedantically took an exec board report, said to them, I'm not willing to lead this journey unless I've got your full backing, and that means that you will have to adapt and change and agree to deliver whatever your action plan is. Despite my firm commitment, if I didn't believe that my executive board were behind it, I would have genuinely walked away and said, I'm not doing it until I have your assurance that you're committed to this and you're going to back the outcomes of it, no matter how difficult they may be, such as tackling the BME education attainment gap. So definitely commitment from the top is my number one thing. Number two, we manage issues such as this via project management methodology. We have trained colleagues internally in terms of project and programme management, and I think when you're tackling such a complex beast like improving race equality with lots of moving parts, you can't do it on the back of a fag packet. You need a systematic way of doing it, and I definitely would encourage colleagues to treat it like a project, to have effective project management, to make sure that you're managing it on a systematic basis. And finally, I would say, start with your data. And it's probably the end of the conversation as well, in terms of you do all your improvements and you look at your data again and you see how fantastic you improved. I thought we were good at data until I started the Race Equality Charter Mark process, and I realised actually we've got the data, but you need to spoon feed certain colleagues with the data, and then you need to handhold them so they can assess that data and work out what the issues are prevalent to their area of work and what potential associated actions they could undertake to address any deficiencies that may be there in the data. So having the data in some central repository as we had isn't the answer. The actual answer is cut it up, make it as easy as you possibly can, spoon feed it to key individuals, hold their hand in terms of assessing the implications of that data, help them with potentially suggesting innovations or interventions to address deficiencies, and at the end we all have a glass of champagne when we celebrate the data's turned around and whatever we wanted to achieve, the data demonstrates that we've hit that achievement target.
I think the most important thing, above all, is getting your buy-in, particularly from your senior management. Sure you have the data to show where your issues and challenges are, but also engage your protagonists, those that are doubtful about you doing this type of work and also sceptical about it, because once you convince them, then you convince anybody.